I'm on the phone with Terry Bozzio, and Terry will be at Juanita's in Little Rock on September 30th. This is a must-see if you're a drummer, a drum teacher, student, or if you just like hitting things in general. What can we expect from the show, Terry?
Well, you can expect a lot of hitting, yeah, but that's just a means to an end. I have probably the world's largest tuned drum set. I have 8 bass drums tuned to different piano notes, and half my drum set is the white notes of the piano, and the other half is chromatic, which is the black and the white notes. So I play bass lines with my feet and grooves with my feet that identify a bass part, and then I solo against it melodically and rhythmically on top. And I think it's something that nobody else is doing. It's like a complete musical event, but on drums. There's really nothing you can compare it to. There's of course great drummers that we all know and probably better ones than me, but nobody is doing what I'm doing. I have MIDI triggers that reinforce the pitches I tune to, so everybody will hear the melodies. And my kit has a lot of ethnic percussion, and I take from, drumming from Africa or the Middle East or Japan or South America, the Caribbean, and incorporate that into my compositions. And it's also somewhat classical influenced because I've studied a lot of classical music, and I like, that angle to my playing. So it's something like you've never seen before.
What is the visual aspect of the show?
Well, the kit is like an abstract sculpture. It's really quite beautiful. It's a rack that isn't used in a conventional way. And so everything is supported to be where I need to hit it, and then the back end of it has a rather sculptural, big, swooping rail that holds a set of tuned gongs and a real big Chinese gong. It in itself looks pretty damn cool, if I may say so myself. And then I'm bringing along some artwork that I've done, some paintings and banners that will be my stage set, and they're pretty beautiful too. So this is the first time I've been able to really bring the whole package on my budget, and present myself as I wish to be presented. I've done a lot of work, for Sabian and Drum Workshop, who make my drums and cymbals. It's been more of an educational event under the guise of a drum clinic. And now this is a solo, club or theater tour, depending on what town I'm in, and it seems to be selling really well. And with this art tie-in that I've done with Scene 4, we have this project called Rhythm and Sketch. I'm bringing it's a caricature of Frank Zappa that I sketched back in the 70s. It's blended with photographs that they take of me playing the drums in a dark room with lit drumsticks in different colors. They use a slow exposure, so it captures the stick movements. And, of course, every drummer plays differently, so the movements are different. And every drummer has a different drum setup, and mine's very unique. So we've all been able to make some very unique art statements. So, I'm bringing the show on the road, and I hope to find a welcome audience down there. I've had many great experiences over the years in Little Rock. I love coming down there and love the people. So
great.
That's what I'm going to do, and it's going to look cool, and it's going to sound cool.
One of the most important albums, personally, to me in my lifetime has been Shake Your Booty. So I have to ask you what it was like to be a part of that and those tours.
Oh, man. Well, Frank Zappa, number one, I love and I'm eternally grateful for, because he took me, from nowhere. I was a well-known jazz drummer in San Francisco with a classical training background. I think I was ready for the gig, but no one would know who I am if it wasn't for Frank. So he took me from San Francisco and gave me world fame, the kind of credibility you can only get from having played with Frank. So I'm really grateful for that. And then in terms of meeting him, he was a serious genius on about 7 levels. Guitarist, writer, humorist, band leader, classical composer, and rock star. And none of those things are easy to do, and he did them all just fluently. So from what I can remember, it was like Marine boot camp for a musician. I was faced with the most challenging, through-composed, written-out music I'd ever played. Things like the Black Page or Approximate or the 200 Motels material we did with orchestra. And then, he said to me, "Can you sing backup on this?" And the part was in 5/4, and I never realized he made me sing and, sing on top of me playing the drums in 5/4 time. So he pushed me into developing characters and acting and, singing and doing all kinds of things I didn't know that I could do. So I'll be eternally grateful to him. And those days we recorded a lot live in New York, and I think Shake Your Booty was mainly a live record and possibly some things we did in the record plant. It was just a wonderful time for me. I can remember when I got with UK a year after I left Frank, being in Kansas City, and Shake Your Booty, some tune came on the radio and just leapt out of the radio and gave me and Eddie Jobson a very nostalgic feeling for the days we spent with Frank.
When you talk about being a jazz drummer at one time, the other person that comes to mind is Ginger Baker. Was he a major influence to you?
Yes, and Mitch Mitchell even more so. I thought those guys were really great drummers. My education went like this. First of all, I played the drums with makeshift drum sets, pots, pans, bongos taken apart, and all that stuff. And I used to listen to the Beach Boys and surf drum music, Sandy Nelson, The Ventures, and play along with them to records. My father also had a Tito Puente album that I loved, so I loved Latin music from an early age. Then I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan and begged my father for drum lessons. And as a matter of fact, this July 15th is the celebration of my 50th anniversary of my first drum lesson. So it was that important of an event that I had to remember the exact day. And I started out with a pair of sticks and a practice pad. And I think by Christmas I got a snare and a hi-hat. And then by the next summer, he got me a full drum kit. And pretty much took 6 months of lessons, learned reading, stick control, the rudiments, basic beats, and a book called Syncopation, which was really good. Then I played in rock bands just through high school, and at the end of high school, those were the two main influences I had in drumming, were Mitch Mitchell and Ginger Baker. Then I started to go into the music school system, and I started to study classical and jazz in college and major in music. So I played with a few local symphonies and stuff. And my heart was really in jazz, and in classical music, the drum set is not really a legitimate instrument. So there's only a few schools in the state, or in the United States, like North Texas State and Berkeley, where you can major as a drum set player. Otherwise, if you go to a normal university, you're probably going to have to play mallets and timpani and things like that. And so I remember when I finished school, I took a year off, and I seemed to have turned pro quite readily. I was hired for some shows like Godspell and things like this, and did jingles, and one day the phone rang and the whole jazz world opened up to me. I started playing with Azteca, Eddie Henderson, Luis Gasca, Joe Henderson, Woody Shaw, just some of the best cats in the world. Herbie Hancock disbanded his septet, and Julian Priester and Eddie Henderson lived there in the Bay Area. So Julian's another great guy I got to play with. Then I heard about the Zappa thing, and that's where I got into that. So yeah, I've had different influences at different times, and they change according to kind of where you're at and what you're interested in. And nowadays I listen a lot. I mean, my most favorite things are Miles and Weather Report, Joe Zawinul Syndicate. Those two guys really are key because they were so broad in scope. They were both classically trained and made music that sounded like film music, electronic music, had ethnic percussion, was classically influenced, and it was improvisationally focused. And to me, jazz can be sort of generalized as, ding-ding-a-ding, traditional jazz. To me, jazz is freedom, and it's freedom with responsibility. You have to be really well-trained as a musician and have an immense vocabulary and chops to be able to play jazz. So then it's a matter of what do you do with that? And those guys did very unique, wonderful things with it, and I feel they improvised in a compositional manner. You never heard scale patterns and just trite playing to prove their prowess at their musicianship. I've always heard really inventive soloing. So in my music, I have an ostinato-based, like a repeated melody, like a bass line or a rhythm that I do a lot of times with my feet, and that gives you the tonal center. And then I try to improvise. I have certain melodies that I'll always play, and I try and improvise in a compositional manner. So it's not just throwaway stuff. I'm always thinking. If a melody comes out that I don't know I wasn't planning. I'll try and analyze that, retain it, repeat it, develop it, and use it so that it makes sense, not just, do a bunch of licks to impress people, let's say. So that's my whole thrust, I think I take from ethnic percussion around the world, classical music, and the improvisation of jazz, and that freedom to create in the moment. I think that's a magical thing that is a great American tradition that is really overlooked and not really respected for the genius that it is. I'm not a torchbearer or anything like that, but I sure as hell have a passion for that, and I'd rather be a poor person playing happily what I love to play and what I feel in my heart than to be a rich person and just doing a skilled musician job, like keep the beat behind a famous singer or something.
But then on a Rolling Stone list of the top drummers of all time, I saw where they had you at number 5 overall. And that's without a super group. You were the other 4 were in a super group. So
well, I played with some super groups. Jeff Beck is no slouch, and Frank Zappa's a genius, and Missing Persons were pretty damn good too. And UK was a great prog rock band. So I have a history, and I'm very proud of what I've luckily been able to associate myself with, and the legacy that's there. But you have to remember, these polls are really arbitrary. I don't put much stock in them. I put more stock in what a musician I respect says about me. Like Zappa one time stopped the audience from applauding after a drum solo that I did. Before the show, Zappa and I were talking about Stravinsky and Varese. It just reminded me of this classical-esque aspect of my playing. And so I went out there and I did a solo that was kind of in that vein. And, you always get a standing ovation for a drum solo in a rock concert. That's like a given. He stopped the audience from applauding, and he said, folks, that was not a drum solo. That was a piece of music. Something like that means way more to me than being number 5 in Rolling Stone's arbitrary best drummers of all time, because you could take a genre and say, well, these, like I say, well, okay, for rock and roll, I love John Bonham, I love Mitch Mitchell, and I love Ginger Baker, and that's in rock. And then if you're thinking about big band drummers, well, heck, Buddy Rich and Louis Bellson and just so many guys I can't even name that were brilliant big band drummers. And then if you're talking about progressive jazz, Tony Williams, Billy Cobham, Billy Cobham's done things that I don't think any human has surpassed yet. And he did them back in the 70s, So I don't believe much or give much, credence to that, but it certainly helps promotion, and I am very grateful that, I'm even mentioned in those lists. Like another example, say, Modern Drummer, which is the leading drum magazine of the United States. They gave me an award in their readers poll for best up-and-coming drummer when I was in Missing Persons. So that means they didn't even know about me in Zappa or UK, and they just found out about me when I was in a pop band, Missing Persons. And then I never won any other readers poll award, and they didn't know what to do with me. And one year they just gave me the Hall of Fame award. So I went from best up and coming to Hall of Fame. So what's more important is just being able to live and play every day and get to do what you love to do and share it with people.
Right. How long has it been since you've been in Little Rock?
I must have passed through there I'm not sure I was there with Zappa Plays Zappa, but I know I've done clinics and performances there like 3 or 4 times in the last 25 years. Before that, I was there with Zappa and probably with UK and Missing Persons as well. I can't recall the last time I was there.
Well,
it might have just been a clinic at a store or some little club or something.
All right.
But I love it. I love the river walk there, and
it's grown quite a bit too. Probably.
Yeah, well, everywhere we see that growth thing everywhere.
Well, I'm excited. Can't wait to see you.
I'm very grateful to be able to speak with you too, and I thank you very much. It's an honor.
Thank you very much. Terry Bozzio, Juanita's in Little Rock on September 30th.